Welcome to another episode of the Sussex Non-League podcast, where we take a look at all the latest goings on at grassroots football across the county. I'm Matt Pole, and on this edition, I'm joined by Sussex sport guru Steve Bone and our latest special guest. Steve and I are both delighted to be joined by Eastbourne Town manager Jude Macdonald. Jude managed Whitehawk under-18s for 5 years, joint managed Sussex Schools under-18s for 4 years, then Whitehawk's first team for 2.5 years, and has managed Eastbourne Town since 2022. Last season, Eastbourne Town reached the Southern Combination Premier Playoffs, beat Newhaven in the final to secure a return to Step 4 and the Isthmian League after a number of years at Step 5. Like many other Sussex teams have in recent years, Town have taken to the higher level very well and are in a fairly comfortable mid-table position with a third of the 24-25 season to go. And only a few days ago, almost lowered the colours of promotion-chasing Burgess Hill Town at Leylands Park, leading 1-0 until late on before conceding a late equaliser. Jude, thank you very much for joining us today. How are you getting on?
Pleasure. Yeah, really well, thank you. Really well. It's been quite an enjoyable season for the most part. So, yeah. Not too bad.
Yes, we'll get onto that in a minute. But before we ask how things are going on at the Saffrons with Eastbourne Town, just tell us about your playing and coaching career to date and which teams you've played for.
Yeah, it's hardly a distinguished playing career by any stretch of the imagination. It's, if any, playing career, to be honest. I played for Eastbourne Town under-18s and reserves, and then went off to university up north, then came back down and had... I didn't really play, to be honest. I had a really short stint at Mile Oak, but I was already coaching, and I'd had the coaching bug by then, and that was it. That sort of had my main focus. So, yeah, there's not much for playing career to really mention. And then, yeah, started Whitehawk under-18s. There wasn't an under-18s there previously. There had been in sort of times gone by, but there wasn't at the time, and so we started that team and things sort of went from there, really. So we were sort of there for 5 years, and yeah, it was sort of really enjoyable for the most part.
What was it about coaching that caught you then, Jude? It seems most people go to the route from playing to coaching, but it seemed like coaching was the thing that you wanted to do straight off the bat almost.
Yeah, it wasn't like a plan. You get a lot of people these days that are sort of quite keen to get their badges done really early and they want to make a career in coaching, and that certainly wasn't my plan by any stretch of the imagination. I didn't coach at university or anything like that. I just wanted to play all the time. That was my only real interest, and then started doing Hawks 18s, and I just before Hawks 18s, I was teaching and I took the second team at the college, and I was like, quite enjoy this actually, and then did the Hawks, and I was like, no, I actually really enjoy it, and that was really how it started. It wasn't like I didn't have a grand plan of being a coach, and I certainly didn't have any designs on going into men's football. Definitely not. That was I wouldn't even say that was on the wish, like far down on the wish list. It wasn't even on there. I had no interest whatsoever in going to men's football, but here I am, sort of 200 and something games later. It's sort of, once it gets hold of you and you start planning for 3 points on a Saturday, it's a weird sort of addiction that you can't. It's quite hard to describe to people if they haven't been in. So yeah, now I'm here really, coaching and managing in men's football.
Yes, you are indeed. And at Eastbourne Town, you are back in the Isthmian League after your playoff final win last season, and you seem to be holding your own quite well. How would you rate your season so far, Jude?
Yeah, we're obviously pleased because we're in a relatively stable position. I think probably two more wins would absolutely guarantee you it, but that would put us on 43, and I'll be stunned if anyone went down with more than 37 points in the league this year. I was really shocked, just because of the way the form guide's going at the moment. So yeah, I think 40 would probably do you, but we keep saying to ourselves sort of 2 more wins just to be absolutely sure. So we're really pleased from that point of view. Obviously, that we've nearly done it in March, and February. I'm getting my months mixed up, but nearly done it in February, and I think we might not get those 2 wins. It might be till March that we have to wait or whatever, but we'd back ourselves with sort of the games we've got to go that we'd get 2 wins out of that. So I think if you offered us this position, we'd have your arm off. I think we're sort of slightly, I don't know if disappointed is the right word, but we sort of, about 4 or 5 games ago, we sort of sat down as coaching staff and we worked out where we thought we should be based on performances, and we think we're about 7 points off where we think we should be, which would have put us in a ridiculous position. And that's just, like I said, that's based on what we feel like we deserved from games, and we included in that games that we didn't think we deserved to win. So Broadbridge Heath away, we won, but we didn't deserve anything from the game. They were the much better side. And there was a couple of others as well where we were like, oh, we've sort of stunk the place out, but we've nicked something. And so we included those games within that, and we still think we're probably about 7 points shy of where we should be. So I think performances generally, we're sort of quite pleased. You know, if we're coaching performance and not coaching result, I think we're quite pleased as a group.
Jude, as a team and as a club, how have you found the step up from step 5 to step 4? Is it a big step, or is it actually, you know, quite achievable for a club like Eastbourne Town?
I think it's quite achievable if we've got some really good volunteers, which is obviously, you know, massively helpful. We've got a chairman and a treasurer who don't put like any sort of pressure on us as coaching staff. So if we lose, we don't, you know, the phone's not ringing. I'm not getting messages sort of about why we lost or anything like that. They're really hands off, you know. So from that point of view, from a team point of view, it does help. I think from the difference from a team point of view is both boxes. Like if you look at we've been in charge for 2 seasons and had the best defence at step 5 in both those seasons. And this year we've shipped quite a few goals, and one mistake will kill you. And that's the same as you go up. You know, you go up step 3, step 2, etc. The forwards just get better and better and better. And so that's been a wake-up call for definitely some of our players. For the club, we've still got stuff to do around the ground in order to. So yeah, we're sort of nearly safe, but we might not be if we don't get some of the groundwork done. So there's definitely stuff going on there, but people are working really hard behind the scenes to get things done so that the club can hopefully try and stay here. Because I think the last time they were up for about 7 years. So you know, it'd be nice to. It would be nice to sort of try and keep the club, whether I'm here or not, try and keep the club. Certainly give it the grounding to keep it here at this level.
Yeah, absolutely. And you kind of touched on this already, but is survival from relegation the only real aim for this season, or are you still very much looking up, not down, and wanting perhaps to secure a top half finish, Jude?
Yeah, that's the aim. I think that's your number one aim. I think if you get promoted in any level, even if you look at Chichester and Cray in the league above, the absolute number one target that they would have set themselves is let's make sure we're safe. And now obviously both of them are flying high, but I think from our point of view, you don't. We were really lucky. People were really kind to us and gave us a lot of plaudits last year about the way that we finished the season. But if you then stop believing your own hype, that's inevitably a downfall in any sport. So we knew what we thought we'd be good at, and we set the target of avoiding relegation. But I think I said to Steve the other day, we try not to put like a ceiling on things. I think once you sort of put that ceiling on the players, they start believing they're only going to get to a certain level. And we sort of tried not to do that since we've been here. The aim when we got in, Eastbourne Town were probably the equivalent of about, based on league position in 2022, of about 16th best team in the county, something like that, you know, based on where they'd finished and stuff. And we were like, well, they shouldn't be the 16th best team in the county. I can't remember if it was actually 16th. We were like, right, we want to try and make them like within the top 10 best teams in the county. So how can we do that? And that was always the sort of aim, really, rather than worrying about promotions, relegations, etc., etc. How can we do that? So that's the mindset we've sort of tried to have, really. And within that, we've managed to pick up some points, but we've never taken our eye off. We've got to get to that sort of 40-point mark this year.
And just with that sort of thing in mind, now you're at step 4. and you're looking like you hopefully will stay at step 4. Is there any sort of longer term plan at the club, thinking, okay, if we can survive at step 4, do okay, might we one day be in a position to go up to step 3, Isthmian Premier? Some clubs have done that. You look at Chichester City, who we'll talk about a little bit more later. Or is the fact that Eastbourne, it's not a massive town, but it's got 3 senior football teams. Is that a little bit of a bar to, could you have all 3 of those teams sort of going so far up the pyramid, or does that hold you back a bit?
Yeah, possibly. I think, look, if you look what Borough are doing, obviously they're putting a lot of resources into their project, which is obviously absolutely fine. And I think Eastbourne United are doing the same, and we've been able to sort of work our project without necessarily those resources. So, and that's absolutely not criticism of them. It's, it's fantastic to see what they're doing. I think we would need investment in order to try and push ourselves and keep on going. I don't think that's unfair to say, but like I said, if you look at what we're doing with some boys who are playing for buttons, really, I think they deserve a lot of credit, and it's the sort of longevity of your determination and your motivation. And if those boys stay determined and motivated, the sky really could be the limit. So we haven't used a lot of players since we've been here in the sort of just over 2.5 years we've been here. We haven't really used many players. And that's been deliberate, because we've got boys who are really motivated and really want to go and push themselves, and haven't had many boys that go and chase a paycheck. So from that point of view, we're lucky, and I think if we can keep that mindset, I'm certainly ambitious, and that's not to say I'm ambitious in terms of like I want to go manage Man United. Like, I'm not an idiot. I think like I'm ambitious in terms of I want to try and do well with the team I'm at, and I want to do well with Eastbourne Town. I grew up in Eastbourne, and it would be amazing if we can go and start sort of playing with the big boys higher up in the table. But at the moment, we know what our level is, and we know the teams that we're competing against this season. But we've sort of said to the boys, look, when we've had these bigger sides and big budgets, we're like, let's roll our sleeves up and let's show them that we can be a good side if we want to be. And sometimes that's gone all right, like Tuesday night, and sometimes that hasn't gone all right, like Margate away. But that's the sort of side we want to be. So will the club want to go to step 3? I hope so. Certainly the chairman's ambitious, but it's all about, we're not blindly ambitious. We're not sort of losing our sense of realism. We know who we are at the moment.
Before we move on to look up how our other non-league clubs have been getting on, Jude, I wanted to ask you about the Eastbourne Town fans. I'm not going to ruffle any feathers and say that they are the best supporters in Sussex, but they're certainly up there, aren't they, Jude?
Yeah, they're fantastic. I think it's not quite what it used to be with like the sort of beachhead ultras and stuff. That was before our time, and I think they got a lot of plaudits quite rightly. But the fans that are there at the moment have been fantastic to us and really, really supportive. And I think it's brought into the community, like the community feel that we've got, and that's not to say community feel within the whole town, but just community like within the club, like the fans that are there home and away, and they really like the players. They'll have a drink with the players in the bar afterwards, and I think from that point of view, those sort of things in non-league football, they really create like a bit of a core that you can build on, and you can sort of travel upwards with. And I think I'd like to think we've engaged well with them, and they've engaged well with us and given us the support we need at loads of different tough games this season. And so, yeah, we've been really, really lucky with the support we've had from them.
Absolutely. And now we'll move on to look at how Sussex's non-league clubs have been getting on. And we'll start in the Isthmian South East, where Birdshill Town continue to lead the way for our sides in Sussex. The Hillians sit third in the table, while a resurgent Three Bridges are just 7 points off the playoffs with games in hand. Meanwhile, at the bottom, things are now starting to look decidedly bleak for basement club Steding Town. Steve Bone, how have our 8 Sussex sides got on since the last podcast?
Yes, so not too many changes in this division since we last spoke, but Burgess Hill third and now 17 points clear of the first side outside the playoffs, but equally still 15 points off the leaders as well, Sittingbourne. Three Bridges, watch out for them, they're on a great run, 7 wins in 8. And just 5 points off the playoff places themselves. Could get there like they did last year. Obviously lost to Chichester in the final last year. Broadbridge Heath and Jude's Eastbourne Town just below halfway, where they have been. They've been around that halfway mark for most of the season. East Grinstead a little bit behind them, but 10 points clear of the bottom 4. At the bottom, great win last week for Littlehampton. They beat Sheppey 3-1 at the sports field, so they've lifted themselves out of the bottom 4. Those put Lancing in the bottom 4. They have lost 5 in a row, so they'll need to turn that around pretty quick. Steyning are still bottom, but they're still only 5 points from getting out of the relegation zone, so all is not lost. And Jude, we were just going to ask you about Burgess Hill. Obviously, they've been going well all season. You played them the other night. How would you rate their chances of getting? They look like they're going to get in the playoffs. How would you rate their chances?
Yeah, rate their chances of finishing the playoffs, or rate their chances of going up?
Well, both, yeah.
Yeah, no, they're definitely finishing the playoffs, 100%. No, really, really good side, really good side. They gave us, we've played them 3 times this year now. Played them in the FA Cup, and they gave us a real schooling in the first half in August, and then we played them again in the league in August. And although we had a man sent off after like 25 minutes, they were still a real top side. They were a good side before we'd had the man sent off as well, and they were comfortable, really comfortable against us that day. Tuesday night, we sort of used that as a bit of motivation, and we had a man sent off again. So playing for sort of an hour with 10 men was quite tough, but they're a really, really good side, really, really good side. And I think if you look at the sort of quality of players, certainly going forwards, they're brilliant. But it's actually their defensive record. I think if you look at the league tables, one of the best defences in the league. I think they're in the top 3 defences in the league. I think I'm saying with the other 2 above them. And I think Erith, who are a bit further down in the league, but I think they're the best 4 defences. So yeah, they're a top side, and I would say that when you're defensively sound, it always gives you a real good chance in the playoffs. So playoff games tend to suit sides who are sort of good defensively. So yeah, from that point of view, you look at Burgess Hill and you go, they've got a chance. If and when they get in there. I mean, it would take a real collapse for them to get out, so touch wood, they'll stay in those playoff spots.
In the Isthmian Premier, Horsham have turned from playoff challengers to potential title contenders. The Hornets are 3rd, just 2 points off league leaders Dartford. Meanwhile, Chichester City, continue to impress in their first ever season in Step 3. But things are starting to look dicey for struggling Hastings and Bognor. What's the latest from our sides in the Isthmian Premier, Steve? It's good and bad news, I think. Yeah,
it is really. Yeah, it's mixed. And I, again, need to start by reminding people that I did on this podcast quite a few weeks ago tip Horsham as a good bet for the title. So surprisingly, since then they haven't lost every game. That's normally what happens to my predictions, but they're still going well. I think it's only 1 defeat since mid-December now. The other week at Folkestone. So they're 2 points behind Dartford, as you say. There's 12 games to go, so they've got a great chance. Big one this weekend, which you will mention, I think, a little bit later. Going down the league in terms of the Sussex sides from there, Chichester City still going well. Had a brilliant 0-0 draw away to Dartford in midweek. That ended the Darts run of 10 straight wins. Lewis had a little boost a couple of weeks ago. A game that we picked out as game of the weekend. They went and won at Hastings, so that's made them a little bit more comfortable in mid-table. Whitehawk, another team we'll ask Jude about in a moment. 1 place above the relegation zone. They've improved, but they're still in some danger. They need to keep the wins coming. But Hastings and Bognor, both still very much in the bottom 4, and to be honest, not showing many signs of a turnaround. Could both go down. It wouldn't have seemed possible at the start of the season that you'd have lost both of those 2 sides from that division at the wrong end. But Bognor almost need snookers. They're 16 points off safety with sort of 14 to play. Hastings could get out of it more easily, but might we see both of those in the Isthmian South East next season? That's probably Eastbourne Town would probably welcome those two in the Isthmian South next season for a good couple of Sussex derbies, but it would make the division much more competitive. But Jude, a couple of teams there we were just going to ask you about. Horsham, I think you played in the County Cup, did you, earlier in the season?
That's right, yeah. Really, really, really good side.
And having a great season.
And I think I feel like if you look back, I think at the time they had 8 wins in the division. I think they also had eight defeats. I think around the time they were having their FA Cup run. And they've absolutely flown. I mean, look, he's probably Dom. It's probably, you said best manager in Sussex. If you're looking at things won, I think he's been incredible. Like, he's taken them up from the County League. He's won the Isthmian Cup. He's had 3 times in the proper rounds of the FA Cup. So unbelievable manager. So they were always going to be up there, and I think they've got a real good squad and a real good core of players. We barely had a shot that night. Certainly, I don't think we had a shot on target. But they're a really, really top side, and I wouldn't be shocked at all if they went and won it. I really wouldn't be.
And Whitehawk, obviously you spent a lot of time at Whitehawk. You still in touch with anybody there? I'm assuming you still keep an eye on how they're doing?
Yeah, I always keep an eye. No, I don't speak to anybody from Whitehawk anymore. One person, Adam Hart, I think is the fixture secretary, but he's the only one. Yeah, it's a good club, and I think that with Sean in there, they'll be absolutely fine. I think their home record is like absolutely ridiculous since he's been in there. As in not this period, but this period and the last period he was in. I think they've got like a ridiculous home record, so they'll be absolutely fine. Hawks. I wouldn't be shocked at all if they ended up finishing in mid-table. I really wouldn't be.
Moving on to the National League South, both Eastbourne Borough and Worthing faced off against Torquay United this week as a hotly contested playoff race continues to twist and turn. What's the latest from the Sports and the Reds, Steve Bone?
Yeah, well, Torquay will probably have enjoyed playing the Sussex sides this week because they got 4 points out of 6 from them. Beat Eastbourne Borough 2-0 at Plainmoor last Saturday. First team to beat Eastbourne in the league since the end of November. And then Torquay drew 2-2 at Worthing thanks to a late penalty in midweek. But having said that, although both our sides have dropped points against Torquay in the past few days, they're both still really well placed. Worthing in particular, second behind Dorking, but actually they're only 3 points behind them, and they've got 3 games in hand. So they're almost in sort of pole position. It's in their own hands really if Worthing can carry on the sort of form they're in. I think they've won 10, drawn 3 in their last 13 league games, which is brilliant form at this stage of the season. Borough only just behind them. They're a point behind Worthing, played a couple of games more than Worthing, but had a good win in midweek to get over that Torquay result, beat Hampton. Both got tricky away games tomorrow though. Worthing are at Slough, Eastbourne are at Boreham Wood, where they've already lost, I think, in the Cup this season. So, it's a really good title race there. There's about 5 or 6 teams in it, but nice to see both of our teams, very much sort of at the centre of it still.
Absolutely. And finally, in the SCFL Premier, Sussex continue to lead the way at the top and by some margin too, while in Division 1 we have an exciting 3-way title tussle. What have been the main talking points in the SCFL since our last podcast, Steve?
Well, every time we chat, we talk about how many more points clear Sussex have gone in the Premier, and it's now 17 points clear of the Premier, which in that league at this stage of the season is incredible, really. And actually, just to bring Jude in again, obviously Sussex were in the playoffs along with yourselves last season. Have you been surprised to see them dominating that division this year quite as much as they have done?
No, I don't think so. I don't think anyone really has. I think that the big shock was obviously when Haverty changed manager. I think everyone was sort of prepared for a bit of a, before the season started, obviously, Trev McCready at the time and so on and so forth. So I think you looked at United as well as real possible contenders. Crowborough lost a lot of players, so you did think, will they necessarily be in and around the title? Although they'll probably be around the playoffs. But I think once Naz left Haywards Heath, it's just been an absolute. I mean, Sussex have just been sort of steam train, haven't they? And it's an incredible job they've done. But they set the structure of the club really, really well, and they didn't want the playoffs to be the limit of what they could do last season. And yeah, they're a top side.
And just to look at the rest of the SCFL, so at the moment in the Premier, it's Roffey, Haywards Heath, Crowborough and Petersfield in the playoff spots. Eastbourne United and Crawley Down Gatwick are probably the only other two that you would expect could force their way into that top 5 by the end of the season. So they'll be fighting to the end. At the bottom, Little Common nicked a win at Wick last weekend, despite only having had 10 men for a lot of the game. Still 4 points adrift. Saltdean second from bottom. Those have been the bottom two for quite a while now. But there are 5 teams just above them, all separated by 3 points, who are still looking over their shoulders. And then in Division 1, a three-way as you say, Matt, three-way sort of thing for the title. Seaford top, Forest Row second, Dorking B third. They're all quite close, but they are a long way clear of the chasing pack. Although, of course, in that division as well, everyone down to 5th gets in the playoffs, so there's a chance of that second promotion spot. At the bottom, still looking bleak and still looking tough for Old Fold and Montpellier Villa, the bottom two.
And as ever for this podcast, we will pick our games of the weekend, where we pick our most eye-catching tie involving a club from Sussex. And we'll start with you, Steve. What have you gone for?
Got to be the Isthmian Premier clash between Chichester City and Grey Valley for me at Oaklands Park tomorrow at 3:00. Both came up from Isthmian South East end of last season. Grey Valley won it and Chichester came up in the playoffs. You wouldn't really have expected them at this stage of the season, if you thought about it then, to be in a sort of playoff 6-pointer. Really, you got both just outside the playoffs and right on the fringes of it. Chichester have been on a great run. They've won something like 8 of their last 10. As I said, drew at Dartford in midweek. They've beaten some very good teams in that run. Grey Valley will be as hard a game as they've had, I would imagine, in that run. If you're a football fan and you're anywhere near Chichester tomorrow, get down to that game. They don't get massive crowds. They don't get the crowds that they deserve for what they've done over the last couple of years. So it'd be nice to see numbers boosted down there. But it'd be a good game that we'll be hoping Chichester get something from it. I'm going to predict, if you're pushing me for a prediction as well, a 2-2 draw, something like that, which probably neither side would be too unhappy with.
Yeah, absolutely. My game of the week, unfortunately, is very self-indulgent. It's Horsham v Chatham Town in the Isthmian Premier. It's Chatham Town is the place I was born, and Horsham is the place I've lived for 30-odd years. So it's now been christened as the Matt Pole Derby. Hornets are looking for a 12th win in 13 and could go top if Dartford and Billericay drop points against Hendon and Lewis, respectively. But it's all heating up in the Isthmian Premier, isn't it, Steve? It'll be a very exciting finish to the season. And for those who don't know, who are Eastbourne Town up against this week, Jude? And how are you and the squad feeling going into this weekend?
We have got Hyde Town at home, so it's one that our form is sort of indifferent whether it's home or away. We've been sort of pretty, win one, lose one, draw one all year. I think it's a game. Our form has been quite good against the teams beneath us in the league. So you'd hope, sort of touch wood, that we can put in a good performance and hopefully try and get something from the game. Especially that, like, Hive haven't had the best away form. I'm obviously setting this up now fully for Hive to go and beat us, of course. We're obviously, fingers crossed, a win will get us to 40 points. So I think that's the absolute focus for us all.
And we could also say just to fans in the Eastbourne area, with Eastbourne Borough away, if you've not got a game to go to tomorrow and you haven't seen Town this season, get down to the Saffrons and you'll be entertained for the afternoon. Yeah,
let's hope so. Yeah, but definitely, I think one thing you can usually guarantee with us is a real shift. So you'll certainly see sort of 11, 16 boys putting in a real shift and hopefully getting a result.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Best of luck at the weekend, Jude, and best of luck for the rest of the season. Well, that's all for this episode. Our thanks to Jude for joining us. And don't forget to keep checking out sussexworld.co.uk/sport for all the best coverage of local football, plus pick up a copy of your local Sussex weekly newspaper. Join us again soon for another look at all things non-league in Sussex. Thank you very much for listening and or watching, and we will see you when we see you.